Next up is Nilla from BuzzFeed, and she's walking you through how BuzzFeed is reimagining online shopping right now by building its own digital shopping ecosystem. She'll also reveal how marketers can tap publishers in innovative ways to increase ROAS. Nilla, the stage is yours.
Hello, Ad World. Awesome to have you back for an amazing interview that we have lined up for you. Now, I'm here with Nilla Ali. She is the Senior Vice President of Commerce at BuzzFeed. And well, in case you don't know what BuzzFeed is, just look it up because you really should. She is a perfect person to tell us more about what BuzzFeed is doing with content and commerce, because she's heading the commerce unit as Senior Vice President, where she works with companies like Walmart, Amazon, and other biggies. So let's welcome her to this interview and dive into how content and commerce is doing right now and what BuzzFeed is doing to really rock that game for this year and the years to come. Welcome to our virtual stage, Nilla Ali.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
I'm super excited too. Well, what do you think? Should we jump right into it and discuss what we're here for?
I think we shouldn't waste any time. We should get right into it. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, let's do it. That's perfect. I love that spirit. So let's start off with, an important one, obviously, because 2021 is quite a special year. Let's kick it off with what you're focused on for this year and what you're working on in terms of using content to drive commercial operations.
Yeah, so that has been my focus over the past 4 years at BuzzFeed, and we've made massive advancements in all things content and commerce. I think last year with the pandemic, we saw this even kind of faster acceleration of all things content and commerce because we had such an influx of users shopping online. So this year, we're really doubling down on the learnings that we saw from last year, the learnings that we've had from the last 4 years. And there's kind of three themes that I'm really pushing the company to focus on. One is all things content innovation. We know that consumers are consuming content on each platform, and we know the user behavior on each platform kind of varies across TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest. So we really want to make sure that we're leaning into endemic content formats on each platform and really thinking about where does commerce sit within the sorts of content that we're creating and what that means on each platform. The second is we're really thinking about consumer-centric tech. We think as a media company, it's important for us not to only think about drawing eyeballs to our site, but how can we create tech that's actually additive to the user experience and actually likely to give our advertisers space on our environment, but actually encourage our users to take action in the ways that they're showing up through our content. And then the last is media innovation. I'm a big believer in, I think ads could just be better. Like, I think it's the most primary real estate on our site. I think users are obviously seeing them, and we have this sense of like ads are only disruptive, and how can our space evolve to make those ads less disruptive? And I think the way to make them less disruptive is to use ads as a way to help users find products that they're looking for, offer them discounts or incentives that would make them actually engage with the brands that are featured through those ads. So we're really thinking about everything through the lens of commerce, but also really thinking about everything through the lens of the consumer.
Right, that's cool. I love the approach, always thinking about the customer at the core, and then also how you can innovate to move more towards what the customer is actually looking for. And content obviously is at the very center of all of that. Can you give a couple of examples, what works in terms of content and how you actually put that into practice?
Yeah, so the way we think about it is, I think it's not a revolutionary thought to say people shop through content. I think especially for Millennial and Gen Z, like that is just how we have grown up, or I have grown up, is every decision I make, I'll open up my phone, I'll do some research, I'll read a couple of posts, or I see something on Instagram, I'm interested in it, and I kind of go down that purchase path. So when I think of content, I think of it as doing kind of two jobs. One is like research and validation, and the other is driving discovery and inspiration. So when we're thinking about content, that it's really kind of through the lens of serving those two jobs and the job of the role and the kind of journey of the consumer as they're thinking about what to shop for. So I think a good example, just to give everyone a tactical sense of how we think about what content to create and how it serves a purpose in the consumer's life. Last year during the pandemic, obviously what people were looking for vastly was different than what people were looking for at the same period a year prior. So we
Right.
really kind of had to constantly look at macroeconomic trends to understand what consumers might be out in market looking for. A very great example that I think all of us can kind of relate to is just work from home. What does that
Yep.
mean? What do consumers need? What is like their apparel shifts? And how can we create content to help people find the best things that'll make their lives easier? That content for us typically lives in the form of a post. So it's literally like shopping content roundups. But again, we're actively thinking about what do those posts look like in a TikTok environment or in an Instagram environment. And ultimately, it's just helping our consumers find amazing products and using our content and editorial lens to find the best products across the internet.
That's fantastic, right? Yeah, I have not looked up BuzzFeed for that type of content, but I think toilet paper articles did very well last year. So apart from work from home, well, let's not dive into that. But I was wondering, like, so when I listen to you, I see that you have a lot of background information, and the way that you look at things is very strategic. I know that our viewers here always look for a good hack or two as well. Are there any hacks that you can share?
Oh, good hacks. I mean, I guess if you're creating content, all I can say is like test and learn. Like I think every single publisher's audience behaves differently on their content. I don't think there's like a one size fits all solution. I think the best hack, which maybe is not a hack because it would take a long time to do this the right way, is like setting up the right data infrastructure to like put out as much content as you can, understand what's working, and then kind of lean into that. I think the worst thing is to just like for us to look at what a competitor is doing and try to replicate their exact model. That just doesn't work. So honestly, test and learn, try as many different formats as you can, link to as many products and brands as possible, and then kind of lean into the strategy that the data signals are telling you to kind of drive towards.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, tracking and specifically attribution is a big topic, and we'll try to dive into that a little bit later in this conversation. Keeping it a bit more macro, I was wondering about any specific features, right? Because you mentioned the 3 pillars that you work on. Are there any specific features that you're working on right now or that you want to launch in your future, something that our audience can learn from as well?
Oh, absolutely. We're working on a lot of kind of new features that are driven by signal that we're seeing through the content. So one feature that we actually released last year that I'm super excited to see live is our wish list functionality.
Okay.
So reason why we produce that is a lot of BuzzFeed's content is kind of distributed commerce or social commerce, meaning we're hitting consumers kind of at the beginning of their shopping journey. So we realize it's kind of a huge feat to assume that users see something on Instagram, click through to BuzzFeed, and immediately want to purchase. So we introduced the concept of actually wish listing your items to save them for later reference. Since launching, we actually have millions of products already wish listed, which you can imagine presents a lot of really interesting opportunities for personalization or retargeting or just creating more of an environment that adds value for the users who engage with our content. But I'd say that's like one step in the direction of us thinking about not only creating content that helps our users take action, but building that relationship with our audience where they're thinking BuzzFeed somewhere where I can start my user journey. So that's kind of a lot of the press recently I got about that concept of a digital shopping mall. My inspiration for that and just kind of the path that the team is taking is right, like as someone who grew up in the suburbs, going to the mall was like what I always did for fun and like something me and my mom, even still when I'm at home, which I'm actually at home right now, it's like, I'm like, oh, I really want to go to Tyson's Corner and just like see what there is to shop. I don't think we currently have like a digital version of that where it's just like, I want to go shopping or I need to buy something for my apartment or I need a new outfit. It's kind of a very fragmented experience right now where you kind of have to remember the publishers you like, or you have to go to the brand's websites that you really like, trust and love. We want to create an environment where we're like, we know we have all this content. We have thousands of posts that we're publishing a year. We have millions of sales that we're driving through that content. It's not very easy to discover or surface that content. So what we're thinking about a digital shopping mall is almost like the entry point to being able to kind of shop for joy through content. So that a lot of that is going to be like building the right kind of user experience to facilitate that sort of like joy plus utilitarian approach of shopping. And then also having those features like the wish list that I named. We also are starting to launch native commerce, which I know is a hot topic for our industry of effectively publishers becoming another sales channel for brands and retailers. So we started testing with that at the end of last year, and you should definitely anticipate to see more of that kind of across our experience in the coming months.
That's fantastic. I'd love to dive into that a bit more. So you say native commerce and you're building this digital shopping mall, right? How can I envision that? How would that look like? right? Because I see a lot of things happening right now in social selling, for example, a lot of influencers jumping on that board, and you kind of fit in there and you do not. Also, you're bigger than many other channels. So what can we expect?
Yeah, I think that's a good point because we're almost like a platform, but we're also like an influencer. Like we're creating the content, but we have the platform and in the environment, which in theory, like influencers could live within. Like we definitely actually see a lot of potential there. We have our creator program at BuzzFeed, and we have these amazing people who are representative of BuzzFeed who could actually be creating content for us that lives within this experience. When I think digital shopping mall, I think like landing page experience that screams shopping, that makes it super easy for you to passively explore. So I think an inspiration for that is more of like the Instagram model, feed based. You're just kind of like browsing through content, and hopefully over time it's content that's most likely to resonate with you. But then also more of a kind of intentional based experience where you can shop by a category or you can shop by themes, and just again making it really easy for consumers to kind of discover that through our experience, but also starting to build the habit that if you come to our homepage frequently, there'll be new content for you to explore, or that will always be there when there's a big seasonal moment or a tentpole. It's again building that relationship with the audience, which I think starts to kind of make BuzzFeed more as a retailer even. So we're like publisher, influencer plus retailer. So we're taking on a lot of roles, but I do think we're unique in that that is kind of a tall order we can actually deliver on. And I will be transparent and say like we're in the middle of mapping out exactly what that journey looks like, because we don't want to be super prescriptive. We don't want to just do what our competitors are doing because there's not really anyone else in the space who's doing exactly what we are. So we're very much in the process right now of like testing different hypotheses, validating it with market research, and that will kind of dictate what the experience actually looks like.
Understood. Okay. One question I have regarding that is, so let's say I put something on my wish list as a user, right? I get inspired by a BuzzFeed article. I put something on my wish list. I want to have it. I want to really purchase it. Would I do that on BuzzFeed, or is BuzzFeed more like an affiliate maybe, and you forward to another shop and then the checkout process starts there? Because that's a very different journey and also has a lot of implications on, well, how you could market to those people, right?
Absolutely. So to date, our business has been the latter, meaning we are an affiliate. We effectively drive people to our partners where the transaction occurs on their pages. As I alluded to earlier, we are starting to test with native checkout, where it's the concept of universal cart. You could buy multiple products across multiple brands directly on our experience. Our intention for doing that is in no way to take away from retailers. I'm actually a massive believer in like retailers for decades have perfected their e-commerce experience. I don't think it makes sense for publishers to necessarily try to compete with what they've achieved. On the flip side, I do think this emerging generation has an expectation to buy whatever they see, whenever they see it, and as easily as possible. And I think given a lot of the platforms are starting to introduce the concept of native checkout, I do think it would be short-sighted for publishers not to introduce that option to consumers. So the way we're thinking about it is having kind of a two-pronged approach. Users can still flow through and kind of shop and browse on a retailer site once they see something on BuzzFeed that inspires them to learn more. But we also want to make it easy for the retailers who have that capability to check out seamlessly on BuzzFeed. We're still kind of thinking about, to your point, what are the implications for BuzzFeed then if we're like owning the full experience? We now own the customer, and what happens post-checkout? I think that's like a very heated debate in the space that I personally have a lot of opinions about. So we haven't quite figured it out, but I want to make sure we're not signing up for something we can't deliver on, because I think everyone's learning. Consumers have very short or very high expectations, like one or two bad purchases from a brand, or in this case, BuzzFeed, could effectively make them never come back. So we want to make sure that we're like not ruining the success of our business, nor the retailers or brands that we represent. So that's something that we take very seriously, and we're thinking about how we'll really kind of own that part of the flow if we get into the native checkout business.
All right, well, fascinating. I'm very much looking forward to see what 2021 will bring on that side. I'm sure you're pushing hard on this one, and it's the right time actually for doing that. Let's jump on a related but different topic, which is on the product side, right? Meaning, what kind of industries, what kind of products do you see being most successful in terms of sales on BuzzFeed?
So our business is unique in that we are, like I said, more of a distributed commerce model. A lot of our activity happens on social. So we notice products that are very kind of utilitarian, solve a problem in your life. It's like a common problem that a lot of users have is really where we see a lot of movement. We also tend to see kind of lower AOVs, mainly because it's, again, I think much more difficult for like someone to see a couch on social and like impulse purchase a couch, but I think much more easy if you see an amazing face mask that, again, we're raving about, we say it changes your life. I think it's just that kind of the consideration period is a lot smaller. That being said, we definitely do see success with higher AOV products, but I think the content strategies for the two are very different. And it's kind of what I said earlier of there's the like discovery and impulse purchase side of things, but then there's also the like research and validation. So we're very thoughtfully kind of building out those two strategies. And again, what we see work on Facebook is different than Apple News and what might be on TikTok or Instagram. So our approach is really use the historical data that we have from the past 4 years to build out our content strategy. My team is obsessively looking at data like on a daily basis. We're seeing like what sold, if there's a pop in sales, what happened, how can we keep doing more of that? But it truly is the art and science of the editorial team, kind of going off of gut instinct of what they think consumers will want right now, but also looking at historical data and thinking about like what would realistically consumers buy from BuzzFeed, knowing what the kind of user journey is and interacting with their content.
Right. Well, I think now we have to come back to the point of attribution, right? So because of everything that you just mentioned, how do you make sense of all the data points?
So attribution is a very hot topic for content publishers. Most of our business right now is powered through affiliate by the affiliate networks. We work with, I would say, most of the large affiliate networks. Everything is currently based on last click attribution. I think that is a massive miss. Our affiliate business, I guess to give everyone context of the scale of our affiliate business, last year we did $500 million worth of GMV in sales driven from our content. So that's a massive kind of pie of volume that we're moving, but that technically is only accounting for the people who like read a piece of content, click through, and effectively immediately purchased. Obviously, we do have like larger windows of when actually someone purchases and we get credit for it. But we have consistently found that if we look at analytics kind of coming directly from the retailers where they can see their Google Analytics or Facebook Analytics that kind of go beyond last click attribution, oftentimes what BuzzFeed's actually driving is significantly higher than what we're getting credit for. And I think that's just the natural limitation of last click. Like you see something on Facebook, you click through, you think about it, you talk to your friend about it. You might be on a different device. You might go do some research, read it on another publisher's site, and then you ultimately purchase. And I actually recently had this like eureka moment where I finally signed up for Farmer's Dog for my dog. I took the hit and I'm paying way too much for his food. I think he eats better than I do. But on the final step of the checkout flow, it asks like, how did you hear about us? And literally there was like 4 things that I was like, that's true, that's true, that's true, and that's true. It's like through a friend, through content, through like an ad. And it's true, like all those things influence me to ultimately purchase. But unfortunately, the way our industry is set up, we can only attribute or ascribe value to one. And I think honestly, that's like holding the industry back, because if advertisers understood the value of content, and many do, but I think they're still, I feel like I've been like educating the space for the past like 6 years. Sometimes I feel like I'm in Twilight Zone and you're kind of like backtracking. But if we could find new models to compensate publishers, knowing that like we probably won't get the full value for what we're driving, that will enable publishers to continue creating more content featuring these amazing brands, which ultimately like elevates advertisers, connects them to new users, drives sales, drives like the KPIs that are important to them. I think that's how the industry can move forward. So attribution is a very sensitive topic, if you can tell.
Absolutely. I think for everybody who has been in the industry for a while, it is a very important topic, and most people are frustrated. So yeah, I really hope that there will be a better solution in the near future. You did mention creators, right? And the importance of creators. And you mentioned them in terms of how they should be, how they should benefit from the great stuff that they are creating. I want to dive into a slightly different direction, which is how do you as BuzzFeed actually find the best content, right? You mentioned the creators program, but I'm not sure how you set up in this regard and how you actually produce such a massive amount of content and still make sure that it is actually what is of interest to your audience.
I mean, I think where we're unique is we are kind of a very tech and data driven media company. So again, we effectively let the data signal drive our content strategy. I think our editorial team, we hire people who like understand and know our audience deeply, but we're not just kind of building a business where we're thinking about traffic. I think that's one way, obviously, to scale a media company is like get as big as you can, grow your audience. That for us isn't necessarily our primary success metric. We also look at engagement, and in my world, we look at conversion and sales. And to me, that's like holding the content accountable for like, is this content actually delivering value to our consumers or to our audience's lives? So we look at which content is kind of shared at scale, which obviously then unlocks a level of virality. And people aren't going to share bad content. Like that content has to evoke some sort of emotion or feeling of like, I saw this thing, I need to send it to my sister, I thought about her. So I think it's like how we think about what makes content good is what drives our business forward. But the best way to know it's good, I think there's a level of like editors, like writers just like know that's obviously their job. They've been doing it forever. I think the art of an editorial voice is important, but I think layering that with really strong data and signal is like where the magic happens. And that's very much kind of how BuzzFeed's business is established. When we think about our creators, it's like, how can we work with creators or influencers who are an extension of what BuzzFeed's doing and really representative of our audience? So it's super important to us, for example, to have very diverse voice represented in the content that we create. So we very much have a creator program that's representative of all different types of people from different backgrounds, different, like we just want to make sure that like diversity is at the core of what we're doing. So that's where we see creators adding value to the work we're already doing through our editorial team.
Fantastic. I would love to look at your data points and see how I can finally get all my videos go viral, but I think we'll have another conversation on that. Maybe. All right. Sorry?
I said, we're happy to provide services to help you go viral as well. So just let us know.
All right. Well, I'll add you on LinkedIn afterwards and maybe we can discuss. We'll see. So one other question I have is actually, how as a marketer could I actually make use of BuzzFeed to increase my ROI, my ROAS?
So there's a few different ways to engage with us. One is editorially working with us through our affiliate business. And the way we facilitate those relationships is our writers are constantly writing about different brands and products, and our team is closely monitoring where we see positive signal that a brand is really resonating with our audience. So we'll reach out to that brand and say like, there's clearly really strong synergies here. How can we do more together? And that can be anything from more consistent coverage in our content, or we actually have built this flywheel effect where brands can boost the content that we've created to drive more qualified traffic to the post. And the kind of formula for success there is we know it's going to have high return on ad spend because we've already seen that through the affiliate data, but we're also kind of driving the positive benefits of being engaging with our audience through the lens of BuzzFeed, which has positive effects for brand sentiment or brand awareness. So it's actually kind of achieving KPIs beyond just conversion. And then the other side of the equation is brands who want to engage with us, but have like a very specific message that they want to push forward. So that's what we kind of bucket into custom content. So custom content for us is really just leveraging the best practices of our affiliate business and translating it in a way that is exactly the message our advertisers kind of want to put forth. And given we have this like robust affiliate business with 4 years of data, we know the content formats that really work and what content's best for different platforms. It really gives us an opportunity to help brands put out their marketing message. But again, through the lens of a publisher, being BuzzFeed that we know our audience like loves and trusts, which typically then drives more kind of positive ROI or ROAS than brands might see through their own channels.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. I love that combination. I've worked with some similar formats before and can work very well. So that's amazing. Okay, well, I have a last question. Actually, it's not a question; it's a challenge. I have a challenge for you. Since you're so knowledgeable, I want to challenge you. We spoke about the attribution challenge that you obviously have, and that's normal if you work with content. So let's say you actually want to sell a product that has a high AOV, right? So let's say a car or at least a mattress. Right, a product that has been very popular and direct to consumer lately. So with all the challenges that we talked about, how would you approach marketing such a high ticket item through a content channel like yours?
Love that. I think my recommendation would be creating content through the lens of the publisher. I think that's what a lot of marketers have struggled with is like giving up control over the content. So I think the less and less authentic it feels, the less and less it's likely to perform. So I would partner with BuzzFeed to create custom content that best highlights the features of your product that differentiate the product from other competitors in the space, but let the publisher do their job of how they tell that story. And then I would recommend creating as many adaptations of that piece of content as possible and kind of swarm social channels with that content to drive that sort of kind of awareness of your brand and to get consumers thinking about it. Again, I think the alternative path is like work with a publisher who's like very much kind of on the intent side and they're searching for best mattresses. They see your mattress and then they end up converting. I do think that can be more of like a crowded space. I think it also depends on like what is the level of urgency. Are you trying to drive a lot of sales in 2 months, or are you just trying to like plant seeds in as much content as possible and kind of let it generate a lot of qualified traffic over time? So I think that would be my question, is like, where are we sitting in terms of the urgency of driving sales? But in terms of measuring success, I think if you're going in either kind of path, I do think it's a huge miss to just look at last click attribution. I think, however, you can closely partner with the publisher to understand what was the traffic to the content, what was the click-through rate, what sort of users engaged with that piece of content, and kind of make the inferences from there as to whether or not that was like the right target audience you wanted to get in front of, and did enough people engage with the piece of content that might ultimately drive sales. That's kind of how I would approach it. I would not just go the path of saying like, hey, publisher, put a link in your content. I saw 0 views, or I saw 0 activity from this means it didn't work. I don't really think that's how consumer behavior is with content. I think it's a lot kind of like a longer consideration period, which has a lot of implications for how to measure success.
Absolutely. Yeah. I personally would probably try to drive a lot of that traffic to an opt-in page and then just educate on my side. And of course, you run all the retargeting you can and so forth.
100%.
So
yeah,
I think that's
get as many
the biggest
people as you can to see your product through the context of a publisher who has just a really strong and powerful voice, or not powerful, but a voice that users trust. But then identify ways to kind of retarget the users who've been exposed to get them down the funnel to ultimately convert, is I think kind of the formula for success.
Absolutely. Well, fascinating. Thank you so much. That was a really insightful conversation. I appreciate your time and all the value that you've provided to myself, quite frankly, and of course, our perfect audience here at AdWorld. It was amazing speaking with you. Thank you so much, Nila.
Thank you so much. That flew by. It was super fun. Thank you.
Thank you.